much. We are delighted to invite Drew Brown to be with us tonight. He is a gifted minister and musician, and his presentation is entitled Creativity, Listening, and the Prophetic Imagination. Welcome, Drew.
Thank you. Thank you so much. This is so cool, Beth. That was good. Yeah, definitely could resonate with a lot of what's been said so far tonight. So yeah, I'm a musician. I'm a storyteller. I'm a pastor in the arts sector. Yes, I've graduated from the School of Guinness. That's sort of my normal joke that I like to say in church circles. And I've done a lot of work within the Anglican circles, evangelical circles, and United Spaces as well. So I've sort of dabbled in a lot of the same networks and circles as a lot of you. But I spend most of my time stirring up some good trouble in local communities. And I think that's really what I'm about to share tonight. When I started writing this, it was a little bit more, wee woo, if you will, a little more esoteric, a little more sort of super creative and spiritual. Um, but as I landed, it became a lot more grounded and literal and linear. And so we're going to be talking about these three big rocks of creativity, listening, and prophetic imagination. And I know that I'm speaking to a group of people who kind of know this stuff and you live this stuff. So I'm not going to try and speak to you as if this is the first time you've heard of this, but I'd like to share some stories about kind of my perspective, my learnings in this journey, and maybe we can inspire each other in this. I'm going to start with this. And yes, of course, I'm talking about these three things within the context of neighborhood and, looking at these powerful forces that shape not only how we experience the world, but how we can imagine building beloved community. So it's in the context of kind of being present in the places and spaces in which we inhabit. Um, in the words of Bell Hooks, beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by its affirmation, by each of us claiming the identities and cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world. And so let's begin by creativity. We know what creativity is. It's fine, but in sort of when it comes to neighborhood and that kind of growth thought, it's the lifeblood of connection. It's it's the practice of imagining and creating spaces where everyone belongs, where the everyday becomes sacred. It's about seeing potential, but not just in individuals, but also in the royal we, if you will, in relationships between us, in the web of connectedness or relational disconnectedness. It's envisioning neighborhoods where care and collaboration replace isolation and competition. Many years ago, I remember I said something, I was on a TV show and I said something that kind of ticked off a lot of artists. And I think the sentence was kind of like, art is a beautiful gift, but also art can be a great tool. And people really push back on that tool thing. Art is not a tool. What are you doing? What are you saying? And I was like, sure, in a negative sense, art as a tool can be propaganda. For sure. We don't want that. But the way I was looking at it and trying to frame it was this way. Yes, art is beauty. Yeah, art is expression. But art with specific intent, story, purpose can be a tool, a beautiful tool. I mean, it's one that I tend to use to kind of leverage the arts to help build and foster community. And I think, especially in church world and in parachurch world, um, we tend to use the word reimagine a lot. I'm kind of sick of it, even though it explains exactly what we're trying to do. I'm done. I tried to not say it, but I'm sure I'll say it many times today. Um, it is about reimagining things. It really is. And one of my favorite ways of inviting people into a creative space is to collectively engage in the radical act of reimagining what their shared space can be. Inviting people, what did I just say? Inviting people to a creative space to collectively engage in the radical act of reimagining what their shared space can be. Yes. Yes. That's right. It's all planned out here, guys. I'm reading a script. No, no, it's not. Creativity flourishes in community because it's best when it's a collective act. And as a writer, trust me, I'm the kind of person who loves to write on my own. I love to make things on my own, produce things on my own. But even in when I think I've made the best song or the best piece, the best orchestration, the next thing I do is I look to someone else who's better than me and I say, "Hey man, what would you do with this? Help me with this. What would you do? Like how do you hear this? How do you see this?" And I learned so much. I learned how much it's actually not that great of a song and obviously becomes so much better when they put their input into it. It might have been great on its own, but man, in collaboration, when it's a collective act, it is so much better. Just out here on this window here, I look out into this neighborhood, and it's a really cool neighborhood. And it's a neighborhood that's kind of growing together. We're learning how to be a neighborhood together. And Halloween, I had this thing with Halloween where, and don't shoot me, please, but where many times I see more of the Christmas spirit in Halloween than I do at Christmas. And here's why I think that way. Here's why I say that. At Halloween, everybody's chill, everybody's welcoming, doors are open, people are hanging out, people are gathering, and it's not a sense of pressure. It's not a sense of like, I have to do this. It's like, let's do this together. It's so beautiful. All ages, all stages, being silly, being joyful. I want to see more of that at Christmas. But thankfully, I still see a lot of that Halloween. And so Halloween, I sit out there in the back of my little garage area, and a bunch of us will sit there with some wine, some rum, some Guinness, and obviously candy and chips for the kids. And the parents will gather, and the kids will just run around and get candy. And we'll sit there and we'll actually dream about what we want to do in the upcoming year. Every time. Block parties, murals, community gardens, potlucks, a child care network. And I can't remember some of their names. But yet we're collaborating on how we can make this neighborhood better. Creativity flourishes in community as a collective act. It flourishes collectively and not in isolation because people want to be a part of something. People yearn to be a part of something together and be creative together. Listening. Now, again, we know how to listen. And we've talked about listening quite a bit today. Listening to spirit, listening to God, listening to each other, listening to the voices that, might not be heard enough. Yes and yes and yes. I'm not actually adding anything new to that. It's the same, yes and amen. And I think listening is the foundation of community building. It's the act of making space for others to share their stories and their dreams and their struggles. Um, but I think for me, not but, and I think for me, it's always also about curiosity and humility, recognizing that each voice holds a piece of the collective wisdom that we need in order to move forward. And sometimes as ministers, as leaders, as people who are kind of like always in the know, we think we know best. We think we know the right path to take. Listening proves that otherwise. It kind of shuts us down a little bit and we go, oh, right, as we hear new perspectives and new ways of seeing things and hearing things. But also listening can also sort of level playing field a little bit. It allows everybody to kind of lean in a beautiful way. There was one time many years ago, this is right before COVID. I was waiting for my kids after school, and I actually sat around just at the park on a swing playing on my phone. And I started looking at some of the dads who are there to pick up their kids, and everybody's kind of like, "Where's my kid?" You can tell everybody's kind of grumpy or just feeling kind of like, "Oh, I don't want to be here." And so I actually began tapping on a few shoulders, saying, "Hey, um, wing 7:30 at the pub. You want to go?" And I kid you not, everybody that I tapped said yes, which is weird, especially for men. Um, and I wound up having like 20 to 30 guys around 7:30. They all did their home life things. They made sure the families were fed. They made sure the kids were ready for bed. But at 7:30, we're all sitting around the table, having some wings, having some pints. And by the end of the night, most of these guys were in tears, actual tears, literal tears, because we spent the whole time as strangers, just opening ourselves up to each other. It was like they were desperate for connection, desperate to be seen and to be known. And I was like, this is powerful. Just by hearing each other and seeing each other in each other's stories. I think listening sometimes we downplay the power of listening. True listening requires us to confront our biases and assumptions. True listening, the deep kind of listening, means that we are tuned to the silences of like the voices who are missing from our conversations, who's been left out of the story we tell in our neighborhoods. Um, we have an opportunity to make room for the voices of those who have been marginalized or silenced or tokenized. And in doing so, we begin to create a space where everyone feels seen and heard and accepted and not used. Okay, I'm running out of time. Prophetic imagination. Again, I'm not going to dive too heavily into this because you know all about this. When we talk about building community, prophetic imagination is what allows us to dream beyond the limitations of the present. It's about envisioning a neighborhood that reflects our highest values. And for me, when I look around and I see these beautiful people, I think of justice and love and equity, obviously. And I want these values to be seen and felt and heard and to be in action in our spaces. Prophetic imagination invites us to ask, like, what if? What if our streets and places that we inhabit were expressions of joy and connection instead of isolation? No, I'll say one more thing before I go there. I think MLK, who spoke of beloved community often, he had that vision of, he wanted communities, he wanted the world to be free of segregation and achieving equality. But it wasn't just about that. It was much deeper than that. It's about creating a world where love and justice are at the center, at the core of our relationships, but also our systems. And for everyone, not just for the black man, but for everybody. And so, yes, to build a community, we must dare to imagine it first. But here's where sometimes we miss the plot. And in my experience, a lot of spiritual communities kind of like leave it there. We dream, we pray, and we go, okay, God, do your thing. And that's the disconnect. Because I believe, my belief, is that prophetic imagination also calls us to do. It also calls us to be. It also calls us to act. It also calls us, to do the work of being in the neighborhood. It's naming the obstacles that stand in the way of these dreams. It's speaking truth to power. It's identifying systems of oppression that divide us and being committed to dismantle these systems. It's about hope. It's about holding on to the belief that change is possible. One of my old youth groups, their motto was "Another world is possible," and by having this as their core belief as a group, they wound up being a part, or sorry, inviting almost 80 kids from just non-church kids, just from local schools to be part of it. Um, when I started working at this church, it was like 100 kids, and I was like, wow, what a great youth group. This is awesome. And they're like, yeah. Only 20 of them are Christians. Only 20 of them are from our church. The rest are just kids from the neighborhood, because they were organized and galvanized around this idea of justice, around this idea of loving people well. And that blew my mind. And they went out twice a week to do the work. So, how do creativity and listening and prophetic imagination come together in the context of community building? I don't know. Figure it out. I know it's like for me. I know what we do here. But what we do here probably won't work for you, won't work for your context. But yeah, that is the question. How do we create opportunities for this to happen? I'm not sure. But I do know this: creativity gives us the tools to shape a new reality. Um, Listening ensures us that this reality is found in the roots and the roots. Roots being Roots, and then roots also Roots, of the people and place in which we inhabit. It's rooted in the voices and the needs of the people who make up our community. And prophetic imagination gives us the courage to dream of a future where every neighbor is valued and no one is left behind, because truly another world is possible. Hmm. It's my goal, my dream that these beautiful streets filled with beautiful people will become even more filled with laughter and connection, and not just based around a cultural connection, but a community one, and to celebrate the sense that we are continuing to build something together. Because that's the exciting thing. Those people out on those Halloween nights when we're gathered around in my garage, shivering sometimes, we're excited that we're building something together. This is the power of creativity. This is the power of listening. This is the power of prophetic imagination. I want each of these households filled with their beautiful stories and families and their cultures to see our neighborhood not just as places where we live, but spaces where we can love and dream and build together. Creativity shapes a new reality. Listening roots change in real voices. Prophetic imagination gives us the courage to dream and then respond. So, okay, I should go because I'm probably running out of time. I'm sorry. Let me just leave you with this. Beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by the affirmation, by each of us claiming the identities and cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world. So let us imagine on and follow the lead of the Spirit and build beautiful, beloved communities. One act of creativity, one moment of listening, and one bold dream at a time. Thanks, everybody.